Hello, my Royal Enfield Meteor is now running, 1200 miles done, and it's time to have some fun. Good lord, I should be a poet. So I'm up in Scotland, well, just left Kilcreggan to be more precise, and I'm heading up to Inverary and Dalmally. Fine Scottish names. Probably going to visit a couple of castles up that way as well. Weather permitting, that is. Mind you, if you put off using the motorbike because of potential rain in Scotland, you'd never use the thing. So what will be, will be. I'm just riding along the side of Gairloch, and just on the right hand side is the nuclear submarine base. I did actually spot one of the submarines which surfaced a couple of weeks ago. Quite an impressive sight, if a little bit intimidating. So today is a celebration ride to mark the end of its running-in period. Liberation Day, if you like. Just heading up on this road to Arrochar, and just on my left here is a place called the Green Kettle Inn. Nice little B&B. I guess if I was to describe the running-in period in a few words, it would be something like a mild pain in the arse. I pretty much kept to the running-in period fairly religiously, just what it said in the Royal Enfield manual, to be honest. 0 to 300 miles, bike under 40 miles an hour, kept the revs down to a certain limit in each gear. Then 3 to 1200 miles, up to 50 miles an hour with the revs slightly increased. I mean, I was talking to a few people, and some of them people with much more mechanical nous than myself. The consensus of opinion seemed to be that it was a little over the top and a little bit unnecessary. But me being me, I just stuck to what the manual had said, so I kept to it. Incidentally, I think this place on my left here is where they actually load the nuclear weapons onto the submarines. I've been led to believe anyway. And the road on the right there is a Ministry of Defence road. Go up there on your motorbike, you'll likely get shot. To be honest, most of the motorbikes I've ever owned have been second-hand, so this running-in concept was all new to me. It was a little bit alien. So I did a bit of research into the subject, and there's so many different opinions on this subject. It's quite bewildering, to be honest. Yeah, like I said earlier, there's been a lot of stuff written and talked about with regard to running in a motorbike, with a lot of people sort of saying it's a little bit over the top and unnecessary. Which I guess I was a bit surprised at, but there you go. And I know from my own experience, taking out loan bikes for test rides, I mean the last couple I took out Royal Enfields, they were both under 500 miles, and there's absolutely no way they had been run in inverted commas, correctly by customers. I mean, they would have just went out for a test ride and had a jolly good blast on them. Yeah, I was reading this quite interesting article by a engineer in the car, I think it was the car industry, but basically he was talking about the term running in, and he was saying, that came from engineering practices from years ago, and they were outdated and unnecessary. There was even some talk of people within the motorbike industry that manufacturers will sometimes recommend quite hefty running-in periods, basically because then the theory is it will be less likely for them to have to face warranty claims. I really don't know if there's any truth in that or not, but it's food for thought anyway. I thought I'd just pull in here, excuse for a quick coffee break. I absolutely love this bike, I really do. It's funny how things work out. Before I bought it, it was nowhere even on my radar to buy. It was sort of third or fourth choice, to be honest, and it's turned into probably my favourite bike. Just gonna have a sit down by the lock and admire Arakaw from afar. Flask of coffee, beautiful views. What is there not to like? Happy days indeed. One thing I wanted to know was what exactly is breaking in an engine. To be honest, I didn't rightly know, if I'm being totally truthful. All I do know, it's a highly contentious issue. One of the main themes about running in a motorbike engine, well, any engine for that matter, is that of the piston. Apparently, when they're manufactured, there's microscopic rough surfaces on them, and they are obviously rubbing against their counterparts, and they are then to bed in. And apparently this happens in the first sort of 50 miles or so of the engine's life. So you're getting reduced friction, improved sealing in terms of the piston ring in the chamber, and I guess once this is achieved, the engine should be more efficient, more reliable, and should, I guess, last longer. In other words, there's a lot of moving parts in the engine, obviously, that all need bedding in. But the main issue seems to be with regard to the piston ring and its seal within the cylinder head, and apparently that has a massive impact on performance, reliability, and I guess longevity of the engine. In the case of the Royal Enfield, I mean, the manufacturer basically says, 1200 miles running in period, an oil change at 300 miles, and then the stipulated rev limit at certain speeds and certain gears, and you're advised to sort of constantly change your engine speed, only have it run for an hour or so to start with and let it cool off, etc., which is all well and good, but there is another train of thought about all of this, and that's almost opposite to what the manufacturers are actually recommending. I mean, it suggests, a far more aggressive approach to successfully bed in the piston rings. I mean, this is, stuff I've read and seen online. I mean, these are genuine people saying this with engineering backgrounds. So it's not just Joe Bloggs who's talking out of his arse. There's a really interesting video on YouTube whereby this mechanic, he had two Honda 300cc engines. The first one he broke in very gently as per manufacturer's recommendations, and the second one he basically didn't run it in at all, at almost full throttle from the outset. And both the engines would tret exactly the same. They both had oil changes at 600 miles. Then at 1,000 miles, their official run-in period, a compression and leak test was done. Both engines were stripped down, all the parts were inspected and measured, and bottom line was the conclusion there was virtually no difference in the two engines. The oil was inspected, so there was virtually no difference in that, and also the valve clearances and piston diameters were almost identical. So you might be excused in thinking that if that is the case, then it doesn't really matter how you're running the engine if the results are the same. Well, that's not quite the case. It just gets more confusing by the minute. So basically, both Honda engines were in a very mild state of tune, so there was a lot of room for manoeuvre. But at the opposite end of the scale, you take like high performance motorbikes, I don't know off the top of my head, Yamaha R1, Honda Fireblade, that sort of thing, with they have really high rev limits. They're using different materials, different compression ratios, different red lines, And it was basically said that it certainly wouldn't be recommended not to run an engine in like that, a bit more stringently. Just having a little walk round Inverary Castle. It is truly stunning. I was going to go in, but I am too tight to pay the admission charge. Oh well, maybe next time. Just riding into Inverary town centre. Inverary, I really love that name. It just encapsulates everything that is Scottish. Inverary, such a cool name. Time for another sit down, another coffee and some more food. No wonder I'm getting so bloody fat. Anyway, that seagull's got his or her beady little eye on me. Big bugger as well. So now the engine is run in, it definitely feels different. It's hard to put into words exactly what that feeling is. It just seems to rev far more efficiently now, and it just feels good. That's a very basic way of putting it, but it does. It just feels right now. It's like a fine wine, just getting better and better with age. Yeah, when I was running it in, there was just a certain roughness, if that's the right word, I felt with the engine. And, you know, it felt quite tight when you were trying to accelerate, but that's all gone now. It just feels a lot freer, far more enjoyable. And I can pretty much report virtually zero problems with it in the 3 month and 1,200 miles of ownership. I know it's early days. Like I say, I've only had the bike, just over 3 months. But I've got no reason to not believe that it's going to be reliable. Just having a little walk up to Kilchurn Castle. Have a little look-see. Yeah, nice enough. I think it's seen better days though. Does make me laugh. They've got a great big padlock on that door there. I don't think it would be the hardest place to break into, to be honest. Has it even got a bloody roof? So I'll head back to the bike now and do a little bit more riding. Why not? You only live once. Oh yeah, before I forget, I mentioned a little while ago about how I've had zero issues with the bike, and that is true. The only minor thing I've had with it is the fuel gauge, which seems to be a little bit dodgy when it gets low. Basically what happens, you get low on fuel, it'll go to like 1 bar, and then a minute or two later it'll be up to 3 bars, and then down to no bars. So that's a little bit unreliable, but it's not a big deal. I mean, you know you're getting low on fuel anyway, just fill up. Certainly not a deal breaker for me. And just my final thoughts on the running in. I mean, I run it in sort of quite methodically, to be honest. Could well be argued that I was a little bit over the top with that, but you pay your money and you make your choices in life. Do I think the running in period is a little over the top? Quite possibly, but the way I see it is it's a new bike. It's a brand new bike to me, so if I really take my time on it, keep my speed down for the first 1,200 miles, then that's not such a bad thing. I mean, I'm getting used to the bike. You're bedding the tyres in, the brakes, obviously the engine. And I guess with a brand new bike, certainly in the early stages, if something maybe goes wrong or something comes loose, I think I'd much prefer to be doing like 40 miles an hour than blasting at 70. So them reasons alone is probably a good idea, just to take your time for the first couple of months anyway. So I hope this has been of some interest. It's certainly been a big learning curve for me. If you think I'm talking a load of old tripe, then please feel free to let me know. But thanks for watching anyway. Take care.